Malik counted the worn $20 bills.
I've been looking forward to this all week.
Me
His
too.
entire date budget
It's so
and his
nice
last
to finally
chance at
have some
love
time
before
together.
Emma started asking why Daddy was always alone. Welcome back, my family. I'm so glad to have you here. Before we dive into today's video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss any of our updates. Make sure you watch all the way till the end. There's something special waiting for you. Let's get started. The bills felt thin between his calloused fingers, earned from 12-hour shifts at the warehouse loading dock. He smoothed each one carefully on his dresser, the same dresser where Amira used to keep her jewelry box. 3 years since the cancer took her, and the space still felt empty, like most corners of his life. Daddy, you smell good. 6-year-old Emma appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed elephant. Her dark curls bounced as she tilted her head, studying him with those impossibly wise eyes that reminded him so much of her mother. Just cologne, baby girl. Malik adjusted his tie, the same navy one he'd worn to Amira's funeral, the only dress tie he owned. His reflection stared back from the mirror, 32 years old, lean from too many skipped meals, eyes that carried more weight than they should. The shirt was pressed, pants creased, shoes polished until they almost looked new instead of 5 years old. Are you going on a date? Emma climbed onto the bed, kicking her feet against the faded comforter. Malik's chest tightened. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that her father was desperate enough to let his coworker set him up with her cousin? That loneliness had become a physical ache that kept him awake at night? Maybe. We'll see how it goes. Will she like me? Emma's voice was small, vulnerable in the way that broke his heart daily. Malik knelt beside the bed, taking her small hands in his. Baby, anyone who doesn't love you isn't worth my time. But this is just dinner, okay? Just two grown-ups talking. Emma nodded solemnly. Mrs. Patterson says you deserve to be happy. Their elderly babysitter had opinions about everything, especially Malik's non-existent dating life. He kissed Emma's forehead, breathing in her strawberry shampoo scent. I'm happy when I'm with you. But you get sad eyes sometimes. When you think I'm not looking. Children saw everything. Malik forced a smile. Daddy's okay. You just focus on being sick still. 43 floors above the city, Victoria Chen stood at her corner office window, watching traffic crawl through downtown Seattle like illuminated ants. The Puget Sound stretched beyond, dark water reflecting the city lights she'd helped shape. Her empire. Her kingdom. Her beautiful, suffocating cage. Ms. Chen, I've rescheduled the Morrison Industries dinner for next week. Her assistant Sarah's voice crackled through the intercom. Good. Victoria didn't turn from the window. Another business dinner canceled, another evening alone. At 35, she commanded a tech empire worth $12 billion, but couldn't command a single genuine relationship. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. Still coming to dinner Sunday? Mrs. Huang has a lovely son, a doctor. Victoria deleted the message without responding. Another setup, another disappointed mother, another man who would see dollar signs instead of her. She'd learned long ago that her net worth was inversely proportional to her dating prospects. Too successful, too intimidating, too much. The reflection in the window showed a woman in a perfectly tailored Armani suit, diamond earrings that cost more than most people's cars, and eyes that had forgotten how to hope for anything beyond quarterly projections. Her stomach rumbled. She'd forgotten lunch again. The thought of her empty penthouse, with its gourmet kitchen that never saw cooking and its king-sized bed that felt oceanic in its loneliness, made her chest constrict. Sarah, cancel my evening calls. I'm going to Meridian. Meridian was her usual restaurant, where the maitre d' knew her order and the corner table stayed reserved for her exclusive use. Where she could eat alone without judgment, surrounded by couples who didn't know her name or her bank balance. Malik parked his 15-year-old Honda 3 blocks away from Meridian, hoping Jessica wouldn't see the car. The restaurant glowed like a beacon of sophistication he didn't belong in, all glass and warm light spilling onto the sidewalk. He'd chosen it because Jessica mentioned liking nice places, and the online menu showed entrees under $30. Barely. His phone buzzed, running late. Order me a martini. Jess. Order her a martini. Right. Malik Googled, how much does a martini cost, and felt his stomach drop. $18. Plus tax. Plus tip. That left him $27 for 2 dinners. He walked through the heavy glass doors, immediately aware of how his discount store cologne mixed poorly with the restaurant's subtle lavender and rosemary scents. The hostess, blonde, polished, probably younger than him but exponentially more sophisticated, smiled with practiced warmth. "Good evening. How can I help you?" "Reservation for Malik. 8 o'clock. She scanned her tablet, manicured nails clicking against the screen. "Of course. Right this way." The dining room buzzed with quiet conversation and the gentle clink of expensive silverware. Malik followed the hostess past tables of couples sharing wine that probably cost more than his weekly grocery budget. His palms grew damp. "Here you are." She gestured to a small table near the kitchen doors. Not terrible, but not the romantic corner booth he'd hoped for. "Your server will be right with you." Malik sat carefully, hyper-aware of every movement. The chair was real leather. The tablecloth was thick linen. The wine glasses caught the light like small crystal sculptures. This was Emma's fault, really. She'd been asking about Mommy lately, wondering if Daddy would find someone to love them both. How do you tell a 6-year-old that love required more than what he had to offer? Victoria settled into her usual corner table, the one with a view of both the dining room and the street. She ordered her standard, grilled salmon, mixed greens, sparkling water, without looking at the menu. Routine was comfort. Predictability was safety. Her laptop opened automatically, muscle memory engaging her in quarterly reports even as part of her mind registered the restaurant's evening rhythm. A couple celebrating an anniversary. A business dinner wrapping up. A nervous-looking man in an ill-fitting but carefully pressed suit checking his phone repeatedly at a table near the kitchen. Something about his posture caught her attention. The way he straightened his tie every few minutes, the careful positioning of his hands on the table, the quick glances around the room that spoke of someone trying very hard to belong somewhere he wasn't sure he fit. Victoria recognized the feeling intimately, though her version played out in boardrooms instead of restaurants. That moment of wondering if everyone could see you didn't belong, if your presence was a mistake someone would soon correct. The man's phone lit up his face as he typed a response, and she caught a glimpse of his expression, hopeful, anxious, determined. When was the last time she'd felt that kind of anticipation about anything that wasn't a hostile takeover? Her salmon arrived, perfectly prepared and utterly tasteless. Across the restaurant, the man was still waiting, still checking his phone, still adjusting his tie. Still hoping. What do you think drives someone to keep hoping for love even when they feel like they don't have enough to offer? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear about the courage it takes to put yourself out there. Jessica arrived 23 minutes late, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor like a countdown timer. Malik stood as she approached, his practiced smile faltering slightly as her gaze swept the restaurant with barely concealed disappointment. "Malik." She extended a perfectly manicured hand, her grip brief and dismissive. "I'm Jessica. Sorry I'm late. Parking was a nightmare." She was beautiful in the way that required maintenance. Highlighted blonde hair, flawless makeup, a dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Everything about her screamed expensive, from her designer purse to the way she surveyed their table location with visible dissatisfaction. "No worries at all. You look lovely." Malik pulled out her chair, a gesture that earned him a surprised glance. "Thank you." Jessica settled into her seat, immediately scanning the dining room. "This is cozy." Cozy. The word landed like a small slap. Malik's chest tightened as he recognized the tone, the same one the school administrator used when discussing Emma's financial aid situation. Their server appeared, a young man with an enthusiastic smile. "Good evening. Can I start you off with something to drink?" "Vodka martini, extra dry, with 3 olives," Jessica said without hesitation. Malik's mental calculator began spinning. $18. Plus tip. His palms grew damp. "Just water for me, thanks." Still deciding. Jessica's eyebrows rose slightly. "Water." "I'm driving," Malik lied, his throat suddenly dry. 3 tables away, Victoria watched the interaction unfold with growing fascination. She'd seen 1,000 first dates in restaurants like this, but something about this one felt different. The man's careful politeness, the woman's obvious disappointment, the way he'd gone rigid when she ordered her drink. Victoria found herself leaning forward slightly, abandoning all pretense of reading quarterly reports. The woman was talking now, animated but cold, her voice carrying just enough for Victoria to catch fragments. Cousin said you work in logistics? That's interesting, I suppose. I work in marketing for a boutique firm downtown. We handle luxury brands, mostly. Very exciting clientele. The man Malik, she'd heard the hostess say, nodded and asked questions with genuine interest, but Victoria could see the way his shoulders had set, the careful way he held his water glass. She recognized the posture from her own past, from scholarship dinners where she'd smiled and nodded while wealthy classmates discussed vacations that cost more than her family's annual income. What kind of logistics? The woman continued. Warehouse management, mostly. Loading, inventory, that sort of thing. The pause that followed stretched too long. Victoria watched Jessica's face shift, subtle but unmistakable, the moment when interest died. Oh. Jessica's smile became artificial. That's honest work. Honest work. Victoria's jaw clenched involuntarily. She'd heard that phrase before, always delivered with that particular combination of condescension and dismissal. Malik felt the shift in Jessica's demeanor like a physical thing, a door closing with quiet finality. He'd been here before, not on dates, but in parent-teacher conferences, at Emma's friends' birthday parties, in the offices of lawyers who charged more per hour than he made in a week. It pays the bills, he said quietly, taking a sip of water to buy himself time. I'm sure it does. Jessica's attention had already begun wandering, her gaze drifting to other tables, other couples. So, tell me about yourself. Hobbies? Interests? Hobbies. When did he have time for hobbies? His days began at 5 a.m. with Emma's breakfast and ended at midnight with laundry and packing her lunch for the next day. I like reading, he offered. And cooking. Spending time with my daughter. Right, Emma mentioned you have a child. Jessica's tone suggested this was another strike against him. How old? 6. She's amazing. Smart, funny, kind. Malik caught himself, recognizing the desperation creeping into his voice. The way single fathers always sounded when they talked about their children to people who clearly saw them as complications. That's nice. Jessica's smile was patronizing now. Being a single parent must be challenging. Challenging. Like Emma was a problem to be solved instead of the best part of his existence. The server returned with Jessica's martini and a basket of bread. Ready to order? Jessica barely glanced at her menu. I'll have the lobster risotto. $38. Malik's heart sank as he quickly scanned the menu, searching for something, anything, in his price range that wouldn't announce his financial situation to the entire restaurant. And for you, sir? Malik's eyes found the soup and sandwich combo. $19. With Jessica's martini and his water, plus tax and tip, he'd be cutting it close. The tomato soup and grilled cheese, please. Soup and grilled cheese. At a restaurant where other couples ordered wine that cost more than his car payment. Jessica's expression completed its journey from disappointment to barely concealed embarrassment. Soup. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Are you feeling sick? Just not very hungry, Malik lied again, his face burning. Victoria's hands had formed fists in her lap without her realizing it. She'd watched enough scenes like this, been in enough variations of this moment, to know exactly what was happening. The careful calculation behind his order, the woman's growing disgust, the way he was shrinking into himself with each passing minute. Her own memories flooded back unbidden, scholarship dinners where she'd ordered the cheapest item on the menu while her wealthy classmates treated money like water. The humiliation of counting dollars while everyone around you counted hundreds. The particular shame of being judged not for who you were, but for what you couldn't afford. Jessica was talking again, her voice carrying more clearly now as her inhibitions loosened with alcohol. I have to say, this isn't exactly what I expected when Emma described you. She made it sound like you were more established. Established. Victoria's salmon turned to ash in her mouth. I don't know what she told you, Malik said carefully, but I never misrepresented anything about my situation. Your situation. Jessica laughed again, that same brittle sound. Right. Well, I suppose everyone has a situation. Mine is that I'm looking for someone who can actually take me nice places occasionally. Someone with ambition. Goals beyond. She gestured vaguely at his soup, whatever this is. The restaurant seemed to quiet around them, or maybe Victoria's hearing had simply sharpened to focus entirely on their table. She watched Malik's face cycle through emotions, hurt, anger, resignation, before settling on something that looked disturbingly like acceptance. "I understand," he said quietly. "I'm sorry for wasting your time." "You're not a bad guy," Jessica continued, her voice taking on the particular cruelty of someone who thought they were being kind. "You just need to be more realistic about what you can offer. Maybe try dating apps. There are probably single mothers out there who would be more compatible with your lifestyle." Victoria's breath caught. The dismissal was so complete, so casually brutal, that she felt physically sick. The check arrived with their meals, and Malik reached for his wallet with hands that trembled slightly. Victoria watched him count bills discreetly under the table, watched his face go pale as he calculated and recalculated. He handed his card to the server with a smile that broke Victoria's heart. 3 minutes later, the server returned, leaning down to speak quietly in Malik's ear. Victoria couldn't hear the words, but she didn't need to. She'd lived this nightmare herself once, at 19, on a date with a law school classmate whose family owned half of San Francisco. Card declined. Jessica's face shifted through confusion, realization, and finally, absolute mortification. But not for Malik's sake, for her own. "Are you kidding me?" she hissed, loud enough that nearby tables turned to look. "You brought me here without even having money for dinner?" Malik's face had gone ashen. There must be a mistake. Let me call the bank." "Don't." Jessica stood so abruptly her chair nearly toppled. "Just don't. This is humiliating. For both of us." She grabbed her purse and walked out, her heels clicking against the floor like gunshots. The restaurant had gone quiet, dozens of eyes tracking between Malik and the door, the kind of silence that screamed of gossip and judgment. Malik sat alone at the table, staring at his untouched soup, his card lying on the white tablecloth like evidence of his failure. His shoulders shook almost imperceptibly, and Victoria realized with a shock that this strong, dignified man was trying not to cry. In that moment, something shifted inside her chest, a door she'd kept locked for years cracking open despite her best efforts. Because she'd been him once. She'd been the scholarship kid counting change, the outsider pretending to belong, the person whose worth got measured in dollars instead of character. And unlike every other person in this restaurant, she had the power to do something about it. Victoria Chun, billionaire, CEO, woman who commanded boardrooms and moved markets, stood up from her corner table and walked across the restaurant toward a man whose name she didn't know but whose pain she understood completely. Victoria's heels made no sound on the restaurant's thick carpet as she approached Malik's table. Her heart hammered against her ribs. When was the last time she'd done something this impulsive? When was the last time she'd approached a stranger, let alone a man who looked like his world had just crumbled? She stopped beside his table, her shadow falling across the white tablecloth. Malik didn't look up immediately, still staring at his untouched soup as if willing it to disappear along with his humiliation. "Excuse me." Victoria's voice came out softer than intended. "I'm sorry to intrude, but I couldn't help noticing. Are you all right?" Malik's head snapped up, and for the first time, she saw his face clearly. High cheekbones, warm brown eyes currently bright with unshed tears, a mouth set in a hard line of barely controlled emotion. He was handsome in a way that wasn't polished or manufactured, honest and real and completely undone. "I'm fine." His voice was rough around the edges. "Thank you." The lie sat between them like a third presence. Victoria recognized it intimately, the same automatic response she gave when board members asked if she was handling the pressure, when her mother asked if she was happy, when anyone dared to peek behind the careful facade of success. "Mind if I sit for a moment?" She gestured to Jessica's abandoned chair. "I was dining alone, and frankly, the solitude was getting depressing." Malik's jaw tightened. "Look, I appreciate the concern, but I don't need anyone's pity. I can handle this." Handle this. Victoria almost smiled at the familiar pride, the desperate need to maintain dignity when the world had just stripped it away. How many times had she said those exact words? "I'm not offering pity." She sat down without waiting for permission, her movement deliberate but not aggressive. "I'm offering company. There's a difference." "Is there?" Malik's eyes flashed with something between anger and hurt. "Because from where I'm sitting, a woman in a $1,000 dress approaching a guy who just got his card declined looks a lot like charity." 2,000, actually, But Victoria didn't correct him. Instead, she studied his face, noting the way his pride warred with his exhaustion, how his hands trembled slightly despite his defensive posture. "You think I'm here because I feel sorry for you? Aren't you?" The question came out sharp, raw. "Lady, I don't know who you are, but I know what this looks like. Rich woman takes pity on poor single dad. Makes herself feel good by helping the struggling masses." Each word was a small wound, and Victoria felt them accumulate in her chest. Because wasn't that exactly what this looked like? Wasn't that what she'd done a dozen times before? Written checks to charities, funded scholarships, created distance between herself and the very people she claimed to help? "Maybe," she said quietly, "you don't know what this looks like at all." Malik leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting to something colder. "Enlighten me." Victoria felt her own walls rising, the familiar defenses that had protected her through countless boardroom battles and social humiliations. But something about his pain, about the way he held himself together despite everything, made her push past her instincts. "This looks like someone who recognizes a situation she's been in herself." She kept her voice steady, professional. "Someone who knows what it feels like to have your worth measured in dollars instead of character." "Right." Malik's laugh was bitter. "When exactly did you struggle to pay for dinner?" "Last week when your trust fund was temporarily frozen." The assumption hit harder than it should have. Victoria felt her composure crack, old wounds tearing open with surprising violence. "When I was 19, she said, her voice turning sharp as glass, "and my scholarship dinner date decided to test whether the poor girl from Chinatown was worth his time by taking me to a restaurant I couldn't afford. When my card got declined and he laughed, actually laughed, and told me he was conducting a social experiment. When the entire restaurant watched me count quarters to cover my half of a bill I never should have ordered." The words hung between them like smoke, revealing more than Victoria had intended. She'd built an empire partly to ensure she'd never be that 19-year-old girl again, counting change while rich kids watched and judged. Malik's expression shifted, the defensive anger replaced by something more complicated. "I'm sorry. I didn't." "You didn't know." Victoria's voice softened slightly. "Neither did I, until I watched what just happened to you. Until I saw that same look I had in the mirror 23 years ago." "So what is this, then? Trauma bonding?" But the sharp edge had left his voice, replaced by exhaustion. Victoria almost smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just two people who know what it feels like to be judged for their bank balance instead of their heart." The server appeared at their table, hovering nervously. "Sir, about the check." "It's handled," Victoria said without looking up, pulling her black card from her purse. "Both tables, plus 20%. "Ma'am, that's very generous, but—" "I said it's handled." The server retreated quickly. Malik watched the interaction with growing tension, his hands clenching into fists on the table. "I didn't ask you to do that." "No, you didn't." "I don't want your money." "Good. Because I'm not giving it to you. I'm buying myself the right to sit at this table without watching a good man destroy himself over $18 and some woman's cruelty." Malik stared at her for a long moment, and Victoria felt the weight of his assessment. She could almost see him trying to categorize her, savior, manipulator, or something else entirely. "You don't know that I'm a good man," he said finally. "Don't I?" Victoria tilted her head slightly. "A man who wears his only dress shirt to make a good impression. Who orders soup instead of what he really wants so he can afford someone else's happiness. Who gets publicly humiliated and doesn't lash out, doesn't blame anyone else, just sits here trying to figure out how to fix something that was never his fault. Maybe I just don't have any fight left. Or maybe you have so much integrity that you'd rather break than bend it." Malik's laugh was hollow. "Integrity doesn't pay the bills." "No," Victoria agreed. "But it's rarer than money. And infinitely more valuable." Says the woman who just dropped what, $200? Without blinking. Victoria felt her own defenses rising again. Because he was right, wasn't he? Easy to value integrity when you had enough money to never have to compromise it. "You think wealth insulates people from judgment?" She kept her voice level, but Malik caught something in her tone. "Doesn't it? Try being a 35-year-old single woman worth $12 billion. Try dating when every man you meet sees a bank account instead of a person. Try making friends when no one knows if they like you or your portfolio. The number seemed to hit Malik like a physical blow. His eyes widened, and she watched him recalculate everything. Her presence here, her motivations, the possibility that her interest in him was genuine. 12 billion. His voice was barely a whisper. Victoria immediately regretted the revelation. She'd learned long ago not to lead with her net worth, but something about his raw honesty had pulled it from her. Give or take a few million. She tried for lightness, but it fell flat. Malik pushed back from the table as if she'd become radioactive. This is insane. I'm what? Too rich to talk to? Too successful to understand what you're going through? Too everything. He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. Lady, I don't know what kind of game this is, but I'm not playing. It's not a game. Victoria stood as well, aware that they were drawing stares again. My name is Victoria, and I'm just trying to have a conversation with someone who looked like he could use one. Victoria. Malik shook his head as if trying to clear it. Of course it is. Probably have a yacht named after you, right? Summer house in the Hamptons. Each assumption stung because they were partially true, but not in the way he meant them. Not in the way that mattered. You know what? You're right. Victoria felt her own pride kick in, old patterns of protection asserting themselves. This was a mistake. I should have minded my own business. She turned to leave, but Malik's voice stopped her. Wait. Victoria turned back, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other across the small distance between them. Two people who'd been hurt by judgment, who'd built walls to protect themselves, who recognized something in each other despite every reason to walk away. Why? Malik's voice was quieter now, genuine. Why did you come over here? Really? Victoria considered lying, giving him something safe and distant. Instead, she found herself telling the truth. Because 23 years ago, when I was sitting where you're sitting, no one came over. No one offered company or kindness or even basic human decency. Everyone just watched and whispered and went back to their expensive dinners. She paused, feeling exposed in a way that had nothing to do with money. I came over because someone should have come over for me. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and fear. Finally, Malik sat back down. Victoria, he said carefully, as if testing her name. Malik, she replied, settling back into her chair. This is crazy. Probably. I mean, you're you and I'm. He gestured at himself, at his pressed but worn shirt, at the soup growing cold between them. You're what? Human? Kind? Real? Victoria leaned forward slightly. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? I can't imagine your world. Good. It's lonelier than you think. They sat in the aftermath of their mutual revelations, two people who'd accidentally shown each other their scars. Around them, the restaurant had returned to its normal rhythm, other diners losing interest in their drama. So what happens now? Malik asked. Victoria looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Uncertainty mixed with hope, fear tangled with possibility. I have absolutely no idea, she admitted. And for the first time all evening, Malik smiled. A real smile, small and uncertain but genuine. Maybe, he said slowly, we could figure it out together. The first drops of rain began as they stepped outside Meridian, fat droplets that darkened the sidewalk in scattered polka dots. Victoria pulled her jacket closer, glancing up at the threatening clouds that seemed to mirror the uncertainty between them. Well, Malik said, checking his phone, that was intense. Victoria offered. One word for it. He scrolled through his Ride app, his expression growing more troubled with each swipe. Shit. Sorry, I mean shoot. What's wrong? Malik held up his phone screen. Storm surge pricing. $43 to get home. That's almost as much as I had for this entire date. Victoria felt the familiar weight of their economic divide settle between them again. In her world, $43 was less than she spent on lunch. In his, it was apparently a budget crisis. I could, she began, then stopped herself. Any offer involving money would undo whatever fragile progress they'd made. It's fine, Malik said quickly, reading her expression. Bus runs until midnight. I'll figure it out. As if summoned by his words, the sky opened. Rain fell in sheets, transforming the gentle drizzle into a deluge that sent people scrambling for cover. Victoria and Malik pressed themselves against the restaurant's window, trapped under an awning barely wide enough for two people. Okay, maybe I won't figure it out, Malik muttered, water dripping from his hair onto his collar. Victoria found herself standing close enough to smell his cologne, something inexpensive but clean, mixed with the scent of rain and the lingering anxiety from their dinner. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body, see the way his wet shirt clung to his shoulders. My car's in the garage across the street, she said before she could stop herself. Victoria. Not charity. Common sense. We're both soaked, it's pouring, and unless you enjoy pneumonia, you need a ride. Malik looked at her through the rain-streaked glass, and she could see him calculating, pride versus practicality, stubbornness versus survival. What if this is a bad idea? He asked. What if we get in your car and realize we have nothing to talk about? What if the only thing we had in common was getting humiliated in restaurants? Then we'll have a very quiet ride to Northgate. And if it's not quiet? The question hung between them, loaded with possibility and fear. Victoria met his eyes, feeling something flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the storm. Then maybe we'll figure out what we do have in common. Another crack of thunder made the decision for them. They ran across the street, dodging puddles and arriving at her car breathless and laughing despite everything. Jesus, Malik said, shaking water from his jacket. When did it get this bad? About the same time my evening went from disaster to. Victoria paused, realizing she didn't know how to finish the sentence. To what? I'm not sure yet. She unlocked her Tesla, and Malik stopped short. This is your car. Victoria followed his gaze, suddenly seeing her Model S through his eyes. Not the most expensive car she owned, but still worth more than many people made in a year. It's practical, she said weakly. Good in weather. Right. Practical. Malik's voice was carefully neutral. Like a $40,000 umbrella. 60, actually. But who's counting? They stared at each other across the hood, rain still drumming against the garage's metal roof. Victoria felt the familiar shame that came with her wealth, too much for most people to comprehend, too visible to hide. We could call you a cab, she offered. In this weather? With surge pricing. Malik laughed, but it wasn't bitter anymore. Victoria, I just watched you pay for dinner without blinking, and now you're standing in a parking garage asking if I'm comfortable getting into your car. Do you see how insane this is? Completely insane, she agreed. Good. As long as we're both clear on that. He opened the passenger door. Because I'm pretty sure sanity left the building the moment you decided to approach a stranger's table. Victoria slid behind the wheel, hyper-aware of how the car's luxury felt different with him beside her. The leather seats that usually felt normal now seemed excessive. The dashboard's touchscreen looked unnecessarily complicated. I don't usually do this, she said, starting the engine. Pick up strays. Talk to strangers. Get involved in other people's drama. Leave restaurants with men I've known for an hour. Is that what this is? You getting involved in my drama? Victoria considered the question as she navigated out of the garage onto rain-slicked streets. I think this is me having the first honest conversation I've had in months. With a complete stranger. Maybe that's why it's honest. They drove in companionable silence for a while, the city blurring past in streaks of neon and headlights. Victoria found herself taking the longer route downtown, reluctant to end whatever this was. Can I ask you something? Malik said as they stopped at a red light. Shoot. Why did you really come over to my table? And don't say it was because someone should have come over for you 23 years ago. That's too neat, too perfect. Victoria's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She could lie, give him something safe and sanitized. Or she could tell him the truth that she barely admitted to herself. Because I was jealous, she said finally. Jealous? Of what? Of your date. Of Jessica. Malik turned to stare at her. You were jealous of the woman who just humiliated me in public? I was jealous that someone was trying to have dinner with you because they liked you, not because they wanted something from you. The words came out in a rush. I was jealous that you were hoping for connection instead of calculating angles. I was jealous that you still believed enough in love to get your heart broken. The light turned green, but Victoria didn't immediately accelerate. She sat there, engine humming, feeling exposed in a way that had nothing to do with her wet clothes. When was the last time you went on a real date? Malik asked quietly. Define real. Someone you met because you wanted to meet them, not because your assistant set it up or your mother arranged it or because it was strategically advantageous. Victoria pulled forward slowly, buying time. College, maybe? Graduate school. Jesus, Victoria. That's more than a decade. 15 years, actually. But who's counting? You are, apparently. They turned onto his street, and Victoria felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. His apartment building was modest, well-maintained but clearly affordable housing. Not the neighborhood where billionaires typically spent their evenings. That's me, Malik said, pointing to a brick building with cheerful window boxes despite its age. Third floor, 3A. Victoria pulled into a visitor spot, noting how he tensed as she took in his neighborhood. But instead of judgment, she felt something closer to nostalgia. Reminds me of where I grew up, she said honestly. Except my building didn't have flowers. You really grew up poor, didn't you? Define poor. Victoria. Okay, yes. Very poor. Food stamps and hand-me-downs poor. My parents worked 18-hour days at their restaurant and still couldn't always make rent. Malik studied her face in the dashboard light. And now you're worth $12 billion. Funny how life works. Is it? Funny. Victoria considered the question. Sometimes. Other times it feels like wearing a costume that doesn't quite fit. They sat in the car, rain pattering against the windshield, both reluctant to break the spell of honesty that had settled between them. Thank you, Malik said finally. For the ride, for dinner, for this. Whatever this is. You're welcome. He reached for the door handle, then hesitated. Victoria. Yeah. I lied earlier. About having nothing to offer. What do you mean? I mean I've got coffee upstairs. Real coffee, not the fancy stuff, but it's good. And Emma's asleep, so it's quiet. He met her eyes. If you want to come up. If you're not ready for this to end. The invitation hung between them like a bridge, simple, terrifying, and utterly unexpected. Victoria felt her heart speed up, a sensation she hadn't experienced in years. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing if I'm asking. What about Emma? If she wakes up. Then you'll meet Emma. Fair warning, she asks a lot of questions, and she doesn't understand the concept of indoor voices. Victoria smiled. I like kids who ask questions. Good. Because she's got about 1 million of them. They looked at each other through the rain-streaked windshield, both aware they were about to cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Okay, Victoria said finally. Coffee sounds perfect. Malik's smile was worth every confusing emotion of the evening. Come on then. Let's see if a billionaire and a warehouse worker can figure out how to make this work. We're not trying to make anything work, Victoria protested as they ran through the rain toward his building. We're just having coffee. Right, Malik called back, fumbling for his keys. Coffee at 11 p.m. between two people who have nothing in common except bad luck with restaurants. Exactly. But as they climbed the stairs to his apartment, both of them knew they were lying. This wasn't just coffee. This was two people who'd found something unexpected in each other, despite every logical reason it shouldn't work. This was the beginning of everything changing. Malik's apartment was exactly what Victoria had expected and nothing like she'd imagined. Small, yes, her walk-in closet was probably larger, but it radiated warmth in a way her penthouse never had. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator, a well-loved couch faced a modest TV, and books were stacked on every available surface. Sorry about the mess, Malik said, quickly gathering Emma's toys from the coffee table. Emma's not exactly Martha Stewart when it comes to organization. It's not messy, Victoria said, meaning it. It's lived in. There's a difference. She moved to the refrigerator, studying the artwork. Crayon drawings of stick figures labeled Daddy and Me, a finger-painted rainbow, a construction paper heart that read "I love you" in careful 6-year-old handwriting. "She's talented," Victoria said softly. "She's 6. Everything looks like Picasso when you're 6. But Malik's voice carried unmistakable pride. "Coffee. Please." As Malik busied himself with the coffee maker, an ancient machine that probably predated Emma, Victoria continued her survey of the apartment. Every surface told a story of a man doing his best to create magic on a shoestring budget. Handmade Halloween costumes hanging in a closet, library books stacked beside store-bought ones, a birthday crown made of construction paper and glitter sitting on the kitchen counter. "When's her birthday?" Victoria asked. "Last week. She turned 6. Malik's movements stilled for a moment. "I had to work late that day. Overtime was mandatory, and I couldn't afford to refuse it. Mrs. Patterson from downstairs watched her, made her dinner. I got home at 9 with a grocery store cake and—" His voice trailed off. "And what?" "And she was so excited to see me, so happy about her cake, that she didn't even mention I'd missed her whole birthday." Malik turned to face her, his expression raw. What kind of father misses his daughter's 6th birthday because he can't afford to lose a day's pay? The pain in his voice made Victoria's chest tighten. She wanted to say something comforting, something about how love mattered more than presents, but the words felt hollow before she could speak them. "The kind who works his ass off to make sure she has everything she needs," she said instead. "The kind who probably beat himself up about it more than she ever will. I promised her we'd have a proper party this weekend. With her friends, decorations, the works. I've been saving for 2 months." He laughed bitterly. Of course, that was before tonight's disaster. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the silence with its familiar rhythm. Victoria watched Malik measure sugar into 2 mismatched mugs, one featuring a cartoon princess, the other advertising a long-closed auto parts store. "Tell me about her mother," Victoria said gently. Malik's hand stilled on the sugar bowl. "Amira. If you want to. You don't have to." "No, it's okay." He handed her the princess mug, their fingers brushing in the exchange. "Most people are afraid to ask. Like cancer might be contagious through conversation." They settled on opposite ends of the couch, close enough to talk quietly but far enough apart to maintain the pretense that this was just coffee between acquaintances. "We met in college," Malik began, cradling his mug like it was providing warmth beyond just temperature. "She was studying art therapy. I was doing business with absolutely no plan for what to do with a business degree. She was luminous. That's the only word for it. When Amira walked into a room, everyone felt a little lighter." Victoria studied his face as he talked, noting the way his expression softened when he spoke about his wife. "We got married right after graduation, moved here because I got a job with a logistics company. Entry level, but it had benefits, and Amira was pregnant by then." His smile turned bittersweet. "Emma was the most beautiful baby. All those parenting books tell you every parent thinks that, but I swear she actually was. Amira used to joke that we'd created a masterpiece." "What happened?" Victoria asked softly. "Breast cancer. Diagnosed when Emma was 3. Amira fought for 2 years, chemo, radiation, surgery, experimental treatments. I sold everything we had, took loans against everything we might have, but insurance only covers so much." His voice grew quieter. "She died on a Tuesday. Emma was at preschool, and I had to figure out how to pick her up and explain why mommy wasn't coming home." The silence that followed felt sacred, heavy with grief that time had softened but never erased. "I'm sorry," Victoria said, the words inadequate but necessary. "The worst part wasn't losing her," Malik continued. "I mean, it was the worst part, but not the way you'd think. The worst part was watching Emma lose her mom and knowing I couldn't fix it, couldn't make it better, couldn't even afford to take time off work to grieve properly because the medical bills were crushing us." "Is that why you're still broke?" Malik's laugh held no humor. 3 years later, and I'm still paying off Amira's medical debt. Every month, another bill from some specialist or test or treatment that didn't save her but sure as hell bankrupted us. I make decent money at the warehouse, but decent money doesn't go far when you're paying for 2 lives and one of them cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to lose." Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. All her wealth, all her power, and she'd never had to watch someone she loved die while calculating the cost of keeping them alive. That's why tonight mattered so much, she said, understanding flooding through her. I haven't been on a date since Amira died. Haven't even wanted to. But Emma's been asking questions lately. Why don't I have a special friend like her friend Sophia's mom? Whether I ever get lonely, if I might find someone to love us both. Malik rubbed his face with both hands. I thought maybe it was time to try. Maybe I could find someone who'd understand that we're a package deal, that my life isn't just about me anymore. And Jessica made it clear that wasn't her. Jessica made it clear that I'm not relationship material for anyone with options. The bitterness was back in his voice. Can't even afford to take a woman to dinner without my card getting declined. What the hell was I thinking? Victoria set down her coffee mug and turned to face him fully. You were thinking that Emma deserves to see her father happy. You were thinking that love isn't about bank balances or fancy restaurants. You were thinking like a man who's been through hell and still believes in the possibility of something beautiful. Pretty words, Malik said. But pretty doesn't pay bills or buy birthday presents or convince women that warehouse workers are worth their time. Some women, Victoria corrected. Not all women. Malik met her eyes. Not you. The question hung between them, loaded with hope and fear and the growing awareness that whatever was happening here went far beyond a chance encounter in a restaurant. Malik, Victoria said carefully, can I tell you something about my life that I've never told anyone? He nodded, leaning forward slightly. I have $12 billion, 3 houses, more cars than I can drive, and a company that employs 40,000 people. I can buy almost anything, go almost anywhere, do almost anything. She paused, gathering courage. And I haven't felt genuinely happy in so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like until tonight. Tonight. When you smiled at me in the restaurant. When you argued with me about charity and pity and whether I was manipulating you. When you invited me up here for coffee even though it scared you. Victoria's voice grew softer. I haven't felt real in years, Malik. I felt like a role I was playing, a net worth walking around in designer clothes. But tonight, sitting in this apartment that's worth less than my monthly dry cleaning bill, drinking coffee from a princess mug, this is the most like myself I've felt since I was 19 years old. Malik stared at her, and she could see him processing not just her words but the vulnerability behind them. Victoria, he said finally, what are you saying? Before she could answer, a small voice piped up from the hallway. Daddy. Both adults froze. Emma stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes with one hand and clutching her stuffed elephant with the other. Her dark curls were tousled from sleep, her Disney princess pajamas twisted around her small frame. Hey baby girl, Malik said, his voice immediately shifting to gentle father mode. What are you doing up? I heard voices. Are you okay? Emma's gaze moved from Malik to Victoria, taking in the stranger on her couch with the wide-eyed curiosity of childhood. Who's that? Malik glanced at Victoria, a silent question in his eyes. How do you introduce a billionaire to a 6-year-old? How do you explain something you don't understand yourself? This is Victoria, he said simply. Victoria, this is Emma. My favorite person in the whole world. Emma padded across the living room in bare feet, stopping directly in front of Victoria with the fearless directness of childhood. Are you Daddy's new friend? She asked. Victoria felt her heart skip. Such a simple question with such a complicated answer. I hope so, Victoria said honestly. If that's okay with you. Emma studied her solemnly for a moment, then climbed onto the couch between them, snuggling against Malik's side but keeping her eyes on Victoria. Are you nice? Emma asked. I try to be. Do you like kids? I do, though I don't know very many. Do you have kids? No. Emma processed this information with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. Do you want kids? The question hit Victoria like a physical blow. Did she want kids? She'd been so focused on building her empire, on proving herself in a man's world, that she'd never allowed herself to consider the question seriously. Looking at Emma, this bright, beautiful child who'd emerged from tragedy with her heart still open, Victoria felt something shift inside her chest. I never thought I did, she said slowly. But maybe I just never met the right kid to want. Emma smiled, a gap-toothed grin that lit up her entire face. I like her, Daddy. Malik's arm tightened around his daughter, but his eyes never left Victoria's face. Yeah, baby girl. I like her too. In that moment, sitting on a second-hand couch in a modest apartment, drinking coffee from mismatched mugs while a 6-year-old in princess pajamas served as both judge and jury, Victoria felt something she'd never experienced before. She felt like she might be home. Have you ever had a moment where a child's simple question made you realize something profound about what you really wanted in life? I'd love to hear about those moments of unexpected clarity in the comments below. Can I stay up a little bit? Emma asked, settling more comfortably between them on the couch. Please, Daddy? Victoria seems nice, and I want to talk to her. Malik glanced at the clock on the cable box, 11:17 p.m., well past Emma's bedtime. But something about the way his daughter had instantly accepted Victoria, the way she'd claimed space between them like she belonged there, made him hesitate. It's a school night, baby girl. But it's not every night you make a new friend, Emma said with 6-year-old logic. Right, Victoria? Victoria felt her heart squeeze at being included so naturally in Emma's reasoning. Your daddy's right about school, though. Sleep is important for growing brains. Are you really smart? Emma asked, turning to face her fully. You look smart. You have smart person hair. Smart person hair? Victoria laughed, unconsciously touching her still damp locks. What does that mean? It's not too curly and not too straight, and it looks like you think about important things. Emma's serious expression broke into a grin. Daddy has smart person hair too, but his is shorter. Malik ran a hand through his hair, embarrassed but charmed. Emma has theories about everything. I like theories, Victoria said. What other theories do you have? Emma's eyes lit up with the joy of an adult actually listening to her. Well, Mrs. Patterson says people who wear expensive clothes are usually mean, but you don't look mean even though your dress is fancy. And Daddy gets sad eyes when he thinks I'm not looking, but he's not sad right now. And she paused, studying Victoria intently. You have lonely eyes. The observation hit Victoria like a gentle slap. Out of the mouths of babes. Emma, Malik said gently, that's not polite. It's okay, Victoria said quickly. She's very observant. Yes, I do get lonely sometimes. Do you ever get lonely? Emma nodded solemnly. When Daddy works late and it's just me and Mrs. Patterson. She's nice, but she falls asleep during movies and she doesn't know the words to my songs. What songs do you like? Disney songs mostly. And the one from Moana, you know, about how far I'll go. Emma started humming, her voice sweet and slightly off-key. Victoria found herself humming along, and Emma's face brightened with delight. You know it. Daddy tries to sing with me, but he's not very good. Hey now, Malik protested with mock offense. My singing isn't that bad. Daddy, you sound like our garbage disposal when it's broken, Emma said matter-of-factly, sending Victoria into a fit of laughter. Brutally honest, Malik said to Victoria. She gets that from her mother. At the mention of Amira, Emma's expression grew thoughtful. Mommy used to sing with me every night before bed. She had a beautiful voice, like a princess in the movies. Victoria watched Malik's face carefully, noting how he didn't flinch or change the subject when Emma brought up her mother. There was pain there, but also something healthier, acceptance, maybe, or the kind of grief that had learned to coexist with joy. Tell me about Mommy, Victoria said gently. If you want to. Emma's face lit up. She was the most beautiful mommy in the whole world. She had long dark hair like mine, and she painted pictures of flowers and birds and sometimes of me and Daddy. She made the best chocolate chip cookies, and she never got mad when I spilled things. She sounds wonderful. She was. She got sick when I was little, but even when she was sick, she still read me stories and helped me with puzzles. Emma's voice grew quieter. Daddy said she had to go to heaven, but she's still watching over us. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. I bet she's very proud of you and your daddy. I think so too. Daddy says I have her smile and her kind heart. Emma looked up at Malik with pure adoration. But I have Daddy's stubbornness. Stubborn. Victoria raised an eyebrow at Malik. I hadn't noticed. Very funny, Malik said, but he was smiling. Emma, it really is time for bed. 5 more minutes. Emma pleaded. I want to show Victoria my room. Please. Malik looked to Victoria, who nodded. I'd love to see your room. Emma bounced off the couch and grabbed Victoria's hand, tugging her down the short hallway. It's not very big, but Daddy made it special for me. The bedroom was indeed small, but every inch had been maximized with love and creativity. A twin bed with a handmade quilt sat against one wall, surrounded by bookshelves built from painted boards and cinder blocks. Artwork covered every surface, some clearly Emma's work, others more sophisticated pieces that must have been Amira's. Daddy built all the shelves himself, Emma said proudly. And see this. She pointed to a mobile hanging above her bed, paper cranes in rainbow colors, each one different. Mommy made that for me before she went to heaven. She said every time I see it, I should remember that she loves me. Victoria's throat tightened. The room was a testament to two parents who'd created magic on a budget, who'd prioritized love over luxury, and somehow made it feel like more than enough. This is beautiful, Emma. You're very lucky to have such loving parents. I know. Emma climbed onto her bed and patted the space beside her. Want to see my favorite book? Victoria sat on the edge of the small bed as Emma pulled a worn copy of The Giving Tree from the nightstand. Daddy reads this to me sometimes when I'm sad. It's about a tree who loves a little boy so much that she gives him everything she has. Emma opened to her favorite page. See? Even when she's just a stump, she's still happy because she loves him. That's a very special kind of love, Victoria said softly. Like how Daddy loves me. He works really hard so I can have things, even when he's tired. And he never gets mad when I wake up from bad dreams or when I spill juice on his papers. Emma looked up at Victoria with those wise 6-year-old eyes. Do you love anyone like that? The question stopped Victoria cold. Did she? Had she ever loved someone enough to give everything, to sacrifice, to choose their happiness over her own comfort? I don't think I have, she admitted. But I'd like to learn how. Emma studied her face seriously. It's not hard. You just have to pick someone and decide they're more important than everything else. From the doorway, Malik's voice was soft. Emma, sweetheart, Victoria needs to get home, and you need to sleep. Okay, Daddy. Emma threw her arms around Victoria in a spontaneous hug that nearly broke her heart with its sweetness. Will you come visit us again? Victoria hugged her back, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. I hope so. If your daddy says it's okay. He will. He has happy eyes when he looks at you. As they tucked Emma back into bed, Victoria watched the bedtime ritual with fascination. Malik checked under the bed for monsters, adjusted the nightlight, and kissed Emma's forehead with the tender care of a man who'd never taken a single moment with his daughter for granted. I love you, baby girl, he whispered. Love you more, Daddy. Good night, Victoria. Good night, Emma. Sweet dreams. They tiptoed back to the living room, the apartment suddenly feeling different with Emma's presence tucked away but still warming the space. She's incredible, Victoria said, settling back on the couch. She really is. Some days I can't believe I get to be her father. Malik sat beside her, closer than before. I'm sorry if she was too forward with the questions. She doesn't have much filter. Don't apologize. She's honest in a way most adults have forgotten how to be. Victoria turned to face him. Malik, can I ask you something? After the evening we've had? Ask away. Are you happy? I mean really happy, not just content or managing, but genuinely happy. Malik considered the question seriously. With Emma? Absolutely. Being her dad is the best thing I've ever done, will ever do. But happy with my life overall. He shrugged. I'm grateful. I have a healthy daughter, steady work, a roof over our heads. That's more than a lot of people have. That's not what I asked. I know. He was quiet for a moment. No, I'm not happy. I'm surviving, and some days I'm even thriving, but happy? I haven't been truly happy since before Amira got sick. I've been so focused on just getting through each day, making sure Emma's okay, that I forgot happiness was even an option. And tonight. Malik met her eyes, and Victoria saw something there that made her breath catch. Tonight I remembered what happy feels like. The admission hung between them, honest and vulnerable and terrifying. Victoria felt her own walls crumbling, defenses she'd built over years of disappointment and isolation. "I haven't been happy either," she said quietly. "Success, yes. Accomplished, definitely. But happy? I built an empire thinking it would fill the empty spaces, but all it did was make the spaces bigger and more expensive. What changed tonight?" Victoria looked around the small apartment, at the children's drawings on the refrigerator, the hand-built bookshelves, the coffee cups they'd shared, and felt something settle in her chest that she'd never experienced before. "I found out what home feels like," she said simply. Malik's breath caught. "Victoria. I know it's crazy. I know we just met. I know this defies every logical reason why it shouldn't work." She turned to face him fully. "But sitting here with you and Emma, I feel like I've been sleepwalking for 15 years and just woke up." "This scares the hell out of me," Malik admitted. You're everything I'm not. Sophisticated, successful, able to afford anything you want. What happens when the novelty wears off? When you remember that I load trucks for a living and can barely afford to take you to McDonald's?" Victoria reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "What happens when you realize that all my money can't buy what you have? That I'd trade every dollar for one moment of the love I saw in Emma's eyes when she looked at you?" "We're both crazy," Malik said, but his thumb traced across her knuckles. "Completely insane," Victoria agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, the weight of possibility settling around them like a blanket. Outside, the rain had stopped, but neither of them mentioned it. "Victoria," Malik said finally. "Yeah. Emma's birthday party this weekend. It's going to be 6-year-olds hopped up on cake and juice boxes in a community center I can barely afford to rent. There won't be anything fancy or impressive about it." Victoria smiled. "Are you inviting me?" "I'm warning you. And then yes, I'm inviting you. If you want to come meet the most important people in my world and risk getting glitter in places glitter should never be. I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be. Even though it means spending Saturday afternoon with a bunch of kids whose parents will probably Google you the second they learn your last name." Victoria laughed. "Especially because of that. I haven't been to a children's birthday party since I was a child. I'm pretty sure I've forgotten how to have fun. Emma will remind you. Fair warning, she'll probably put you to work. She's very bossy when it comes to party planning." "I like bossy. I respond well to clear direction." Malik smiled, and Victoria felt her heart skip at the genuine warmth in his expression. "Then it's a date. Our second first date, if you count tonight as the first." "I'm counting tonight as the best first date I never knew I wanted. Even though it started with public humiliation and financial disaster?" "Especially because of that. It meant you were real from the very first moment. No pretense, no performance, just you being exactly who you are." Malik lifted their joined hands and kissed her knuckles gently. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. For staying. For making me remember that life can be about more than just surviving." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you for letting me stay. For sharing Emma with me. For making me remember what it feels like to want something more than the next quarterly report." They sat together on the couch until nearly midnight, talking about everything and nothing. His job, her company, Emma's upcoming school play, Victoria's estranged relationship with her parents, his dreams for Emma's future, her fears about whether she'd forgotten how to be genuinely close to another person. When Victoria finally left, promising to call the next day about party details, she felt lighter than she had in years. As she drove home through empty streets, she found herself humming the song Emma had sung earlier. For the first time in her adult life, Victoria Chun was looking forward to tomorrow not because of a business meeting or acquisition, but because she was going to talk to a man who made her laugh and a little girl who saw the world with wonder. She was looking forward to being part of something that mattered more than money. She was looking forward to being happy. 3 days passed in a bubble of unexpected happiness. Victoria found herself checking her phone constantly, trading texts with Malik about everything and nothing. Emma's upcoming spelling test, Victoria's board meeting that ran 3 hours too long, whether chocolate chip or vanilla was the superior birthday cake flavor. She'd never experienced anything like it. The simple pleasure of sharing mundane moments with someone who cared about her thoughts on grocery shopping and weekend plans. Someone who sent her pictures of Emma's latest art projects and asked for her opinion on birthday party decorations. Victoria was reviewing party supply lists during a conference call with Tokyo when her assistant Sarah knocked urgently on her office door. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Sarah said, her usual composure cracked with concern, "but there's a situation. Channel 7 News is downstairs asking for a statement." Victoria muted her call. "About what?" "About your relationship status. They're asking about someone named Malik Hassan." Victoria's blood turned to ice. "How do they know that name?" "I don't know, but they're not the only ones. Your phone's been ringing non-stop, and I've counted at least 6 news vans outside." Victoria's mind raced. She'd been careful, no photos together, no public appearances. Just 3 perfect days of private texts and stolen phone calls, and the growing certainty that she was falling in love with a man whose biggest concern was affording his daughter's birthday party. "Get me everything they have," Victoria said, ending her Tokyo call without explanation. "Now." 20 minutes later, Sarah returned with a tablet and a grim expression. "It's everywhere, Victoria. Every major news outlet, entertainment blog, financial publication." Victoria's hands trembled as she scrolled through the headlines. Billionaire CEO's secret love affair with warehouse worker. Victoria Chen's shocking romance, from boardroom to blue collar. Tech mogul's mysterious man, who is Malik Hassan? The articles were accompanied by photos, grainy surveillance shots of them leaving Meridian Restaurant together, entering the parking garage, driving through the city. Someone had been following them, documenting their every move. But worse than the headlines were the details. Someone had done their homework. Malik Hassan, 32, works as a warehouse supervisor for Pacific Logistics. Recently widowed father struggling with medical debt from his late wife's cancer treatment. Sources confirm Chin paid for their dinner at upscale restaurant Meridian after Hassan's credit card was declined. Victoria's stomach clenched. Every private detail of Malik's life laid bare for public consumption. His financial struggles, Amira's death, Emma's existence, all of it dissected and displayed like specimens under glass. "There's more," Sarah said quietly, showing her another article. "They found his ex-date. Jessica Morrison. She's giving interviews." The video was worse than the articles. Jessica, perfectly polished and media-ready, sitting in a television studio with a sympathetic interviewer. "It was honestly painful to watch," Jessica was saying, her voice dripping with false concern. "This poor man, clearly struggling financially, trying so hard to impress someone completely out of his league. When his card got declined, I just felt terrible for him. And now to see him all over the news with Victoria Chin? I mean, I hope he's found happiness, but you have to wonder about the timing." "Are you suggesting this relationship might be financially motivated?" the interviewer prompted. Jessica's shrug was perfectly calculated. "I'm just saying when someone goes from having their credit card declined to dating a billionaire within hours, it raises questions about authenticity." Victoria closed the tablet with shaking hands. In less than 4 hours, the media had turned her first genuine relationship in 15 years into a sordid tale of gold digging and charity dating. Her phone buzzed with a text from Malik. "We need to talk. Can you come over?" Victoria's driver navigated through a maze of news vans and photographers to reach Malik's apartment building. She pulled her coat hood up and kept her head down, but the cameras still caught her. More footage for the evening news, more speculation about the billionaire slumming with the working class. Malik answered his door with Emma clinging to his leg, her face streaked with tears. "Daddy, why are people taking pictures of our building?" Emma asked, her voice small and frightened. "Mrs. Patterson said they're asking questions about you." Victoria's heart shattered. Whatever this cost her professionally, personally, financially, that was one thing. But Emma didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire. "Hey baby girl," Victoria said gently, kneeling to Emma's level. "Are you okay?" Emma nodded, but didn't let go of Malik's leg. "There are scary people with cameras outside. They asked Mrs. Patterson if Daddy was dating a rich lady." Malik's expression was granite hard, his jaw clenched with barely controlled fury. "Emma, go play in your room for a while, okay? Victoria and I need to talk." "But..." "Please, sweetheart. Just for a few minutes." After Emma reluctantly disappeared down the hallway, Malik turned to Victoria with eyes that held none of the warmth she'd grown accustomed to. Have you seen the news? He asked flatly. Some of it. All of it. Including your ex-date explaining to the entire world how pathetic I am. Victoria flinched. Malik, she's lying. She's twisting everything. Is she? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like she's telling the truth. Malik crossed his arms, his posture defensive and cold. Rich woman takes pity on poor single dad. Makes herself feel good by playing fairy godmother. Gets bored and moves on, leaving him with his 15 minutes of fame and a lifetime of humiliation. That's not what this is. Isn't it? Malik's laugh was bitter. Come on, Victoria. You're brilliant, successful, worth $12 billion. What could you possibly want with a guy who loads trucks and can't even afford dinner at a mid-range restaurant? I want someone real. I want someone who sees me as a person instead of a bank account. You want to feel good about yourself. You want to be the savior, the rich woman who's so generous and down-to-earth that she'll date below her station. Malik's voice grew louder, angrier. Well, congratulations. The whole world now knows how charitable Victoria Chun can be. Stop it. Victoria's own anger flared. You know that's not true. You were there. You felt what I felt. What I felt was grateful. Flattered that someone like you would pay attention to someone like me. But gratitude isn't love, Victoria, and charity isn't a relationship. The words hit her like physical blows. You think I was giving you charity? I think you saw a sad story and decided to be the hero. I think you got caught up in playing house with the poor family, and now that reality's intruding, you're realizing how messy this gets. Victoria stared at him, seeing not the man who'd held her hand and shared his fears, but a stranger using her wealth as a weapon against her. You're scared, she said quietly. You're terrified that what we have is real, so you're trying to destroy it before someone else does. What we have. Malik's voice cracked with emotion. Victoria, look around. Look at what's happening. Emma can't go outside without photographers asking her questions about her daddy's rich girlfriend. I can't go to work without reporters calling me a gold digger. This isn't a relationship, it's a circus, and my daughter is the collateral damage. As if summoned by his words, Emma appeared in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. Daddy, why are you yelling at Victoria? She asked, her voice breaking Victoria's heart. I thought she was our friend. Malik knelt down, pulling Emma into his arms. She is, baby girl. But sometimes grown-up friendships are complicated. Because she's rich and we're not. The innocence of the question silenced both adults. Emma looked between them with 6-year-old clarity, seeing through their fear and anger to the simple truth underneath. I don't care if Victoria has lots of money, Emma continued. She's nice to me. She knows my favorite song. She has lonely eyes like Daddy used to have, and she makes Daddy smile. She looked directly at Victoria. Don't you want to be our friend anymore? Victoria felt tears spill over. Of course I do, sweetheart. I love being your friend. Then why is everyone fighting? How do you explain to a 6-year-old that the adult world is complicated and cruel? That love isn't always enough to overcome fear and judgment and the weight of society's expectations? Because sometimes, Victoria said carefully, when people are different in big ways, other people get confused and say mean things. And that can make everyone scared and upset. But you're not different in the big ways, Emma said with certainty. You both like coffee and bedtime stories and me. That's the important stuff. Malik's face crumpled. Emma, go back to your room, please. But Daddy. Now, Emma. After Emma left, reluctantly and with obvious confusion, Malik turned back to Victoria. The anger had drained from his expression, leaving only exhaustion and despair. She's right, you know, he said quietly. About the important stuff. But she's 6. She doesn't understand that the unimportant stuff can destroy the important stuff. Only if we let it. Victoria, look at this honestly. Look at what's happening to Emma, to me, to you. Every time we're together, it's going to be a media circus. Every restaurant, every park, every school event, photographers and questions and speculation. Is that what you want? Is that what I should put my daughter through? Victoria wanted to say yes, that love was worth any price, that they could figure out how to navigate the attention. But looking at Emma's tear-stained face, at Malik's exhaustion, at the photographs of their private moments splashed across every news outlet, she realized he was right. Her world and his couldn't coexist without casualties. And Emma would be the biggest casualty of all. "What are you saying?" Victoria asked, though she already knew. "I'm saying maybe Jessica was right. Maybe some differences are too big to bridge." Malik's voice was barely above a whisper. "Maybe I was kidding myself thinking this could work." Malik. "My daughter comes first, Victoria. Always. And I can't put her through this media circus for the rest of her childhood. I won't." Victoria felt something breaking inside her chest, sharp and irreversible. "So that's it? We just give up? Let them win. We accept reality. You go back to your world, I stay in mine, and Emma gets to grow up without cameras following her to school. And what about us? What about what we felt?" Malik's eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. What we felt was beautiful. But beautiful isn't always enough. Victoria stood there in his living room, surrounded by Emma's artwork and the remnants of their brief, perfect happiness, and felt her heart shatter completely. "You're a coward," she said finally, her voice hollow with grief and fury. "Maybe. But I'm a coward who's protecting his daughter." Victoria walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. "When Emma asks why I stopped coming around, what will you tell her?" "I'll tell her that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. And that you were one of mine." The words followed Victoria all the way to her car, through the gauntlet of photographers, and back to her penthouse where she sat alone with $12 billion and a heart that felt like it had been torn in two. Outside her floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sparkled with lights and possibilities. But inside, Victoria Chun had never felt more alone in her life. Victoria hadn't left her penthouse in 4 days. She'd cancelled meetings, ignored calls from her board of directors, and lived on coffee and the sparse contents of a refrigerator she'd never learned to stock properly. The city sprawled below her floor-to-ceiling windows like a glittering accusation, millions of people living their lives while hers had ground to a halt. The media frenzy had died down as quickly as it had erupted, the news cycle moving on to fresher scandals. But the damage was done. Not just to her reputation, she'd weathered worse storms in the business world, but to something deeper, something she hadn't even known existed until Malik and Emma had shown her what it felt like to be truly seen. Her laptop sat open on the marble coffee table, quarterly reports demanding attention she couldn't summon. Numbers that had once excited her now felt meaningless. What was the point of acquiring another company when the only acquisition that mattered, a place in Malik's life, had been permanently out of reach? Sarah had been leaving increasingly urgent messages. The Tokyo merger was stalling without Victoria's direct involvement. The board wanted answers about her sudden absence. Stock prices were beginning to fluctuate on rumors that Victoria Chun had lost her focus. Maybe she had. Victoria's phone buzzed with another message from her assistant, but instead of Sarah's usual professional terseness, this one was different. "Thought you should see this. S." Attached was a link to a local news segment titled Community Heroes. Victoria almost deleted it, but something made her click. The video opened on a familiar site, Emma's elementary school, its modest brick facade brightened by children's artwork in the windows. The reporter was interviewing someone off-camera. "Tells us about the mystery donor who made this possible," the reporter was saying. The camera panned to reveal the school's principal, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a grateful smile. "We've been trying to fund our after-school arts program for 3 years. Budget cuts, you know. Then last week an anonymous donation arrived. Enough to run the program for the next 5 years, plus supplies, equipment, everything we could have dreamed of." Victoria's breath caught. "The donor specifically requested that we focus on children who might not otherwise have access to creative programs," the principal continued. "They wanted to ensure that every child, regardless of their family's financial situation, could participate. It's the kind of generosity that changes lives." The camera cut to footage of children painting at easels, working with clay, singing in a small choir. And there, in the back of the group, was Emma. Her dark curls were pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face focused intently on her artwork, oblivious to the camera. Victoria's heart clenched. She'd made the donation 5 days ago, in those first numb hours after leaving Malik's apartment. A knee-jerk response to her own pain. If she couldn't be part of Emma's life, At least she could ensure Emma had opportunities to explore the artistic talent she'd inherited from her mother. But seeing Emma's face, seeing her happiness, made the gesture feel hollow. This wasn't what Emma needed. Emma needed the woman who'd sat on her bed reading The Giving Tree, who'd hummed along to Disney songs, who'd promised to come to her birthday party. Victoria's phone rang. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. Victoria, thank God. I need you to. I'll be in tomorrow, Victoria said, cutting her off. Schedule the board meeting. And Sarah. Yes. Find out everything you can about Pacific Logistics. I want their complete profile on my desk by noon. Meanwhile, across the city in a much smaller apartment, Malik sat at his kitchen table staring at a pile of bills that hadn't gotten any smaller despite his best efforts to ignore them. Emma's birthday was tomorrow, and he'd managed to scrape together enough for a small cake and pizza for a handful of her friends. The community center had been booked, the decorations bought with his last $40. It would be enough. It had to be enough. Daddy. Emma appeared beside him, her stuffed elephant tucked under one arm. Are you sad about Victoria? Malik's chest tightened. For 4 days, Emma had been asking variations of this question, her 6-year-old heart unable to understand why someone who'd made them both so happy had suddenly disappeared from their lives. A little baby girl, he admitted. Me too. Emma climbed into his lap, settling against his chest. I liked her. She made you smile the real smile, not the pretend one you do when you're tired. Malik's arms tightened around his daughter. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that are hard to explain. Did she stop liking us? The question broke his heart all over again. No, sweetheart. I think she liked us very much. Then why won't she come to my birthday party? How do you explain to a 6-year-old that love sometimes isn't enough? That the world can be cruel to people who dare to cross the invisible lines that separate one kind of life from another? Because I asked her not to, Malik said finally, hating himself for the way Emma's face crumpled. Why would you do that? That's mean, Daddy. I was trying to protect you. From what? From people who might say mean things about us. Who might make you feel bad for being our friend. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this with the seriousness she brought to all adult mysteries. Daddy, she said finally, remember when Tommy Martinez said I couldn't be the princess in our class play because my skin was too dark? Malik nodded, remembering his fury at the casual cruelty of children. And you told me that people sometimes say mean things when they're scared or confused, but that doesn't mean I should stop being who I am? Yes. So if people say mean things about Victoria being our friend, why should that make us stop being her friends? The simple logic of childhood cut through all of Malik's complicated adult rationalizations. Emma was right, of course. He taught her to stand up to bullies, to be proud of who she was regardless of what others said. And then, at the first sign of real pressure, he'd done exactly what he'd taught her never to do. He'd let the bullies win. Daddy. Emma's voice was small. Do you think Victoria is lonely again? Now that she doesn't have us? Malik closed his eyes, remembering Victoria's face in those last moments. The hurt, the anger, but underneath it all, the devastating loneliness that Emma had recognized from the very beginning. Yeah, baby girl. I think she probably is. That makes me sad. Me too. Emma was quiet for another moment, then looked up at him with the decisive expression she got when she'd made up her mind about something. I want to invite her to my party. Emma. She said she'd never been to a little kid's birthday party. And she looked so happy when we were planning it together. Emma's voice grew more determined. Everyone deserves to go to birthday parties, Daddy. Even rich people. Malik felt something crack open in his chest. Here was his daughter, the most important person in his world, teaching him about courage and love and what really mattered. What if people take pictures? What if it's hard for her? Then we'll help her. Like friends do. What if she says no? Then at least we tried. But Daddy. Emma's voice grew serious. I think she misses us too. I think maybe she's sitting in her big fancy house being lonely and sad, just like we are. Malik looked at his daughter, this wise, brave, loving little girl who just lost her mother and was now trying to heal her father's broken heart, and realized he'd been the biggest fool in the world. He'd been so afraid of the world hurting Emma that he'd hurt her himself. so terrified of others judging their family that he'd torn it apart before it could fully form. You know what, baby girl? I think you're right. So we can invite her? Malik stood up, still holding Emma, decision crystallizing in his chest like something solid and real. We can do better than that. We can go see her. Right now. Right now. But, Emma. Malik met his daughter's eyes seriously. If we do this, if we try to fix things with Victoria, it means some people might always be watching us, asking questions, taking pictures. Are you okay with that? Emma considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice weighing constitutional law. Will Victoria be happy if we're brave? I think so. Will you be happy? Yes. Then I'm okay with pictures. Besides, Emma grinned, I look good in pictures. Malik laughed for the first time in 4 days, the sound rusty but real. Yes, you do. Go get your jacket. We're going to see Victoria. And Daddy. Yeah. When we see her, you should say you're sorry for being scared. And maybe tell her about my birthday party. Anything else? Emma thought seriously. Tell her I made her a present. And that being lonely is stupid when you have people who love you. Out of the mouths of babes. As they headed toward the door, Malik felt something he hadn't experienced in days, hope. Not the careful, measured optimism he'd learned to manage his expectations with, but real, terrifying, wonderful hope. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe Victoria was sitting in her penthouse, as lonely and regretful as he was. Maybe love really was simpler than adults made it. Maybe it wasn't too late to choose courage over fear. The ride to Victoria's building was the longest 20 minutes of Malik's life. Emma chattered nervously beside him, clutching the birthday card she'd made for Victoria 3 days ago but been too sad to give her. What if she's not home? Emma asked as they pulled up to the gleaming tower that housed Victoria's penthouse. Then we'll wait, Malik said, surprising himself with his determination. What if she doesn't want to see us? Then we'll try again tomorrow. And the next day. Until she knows we're not giving up. Emma nodded solemnly. Like how you never gave up on me when I was scared after Mommy died. Exactly like that. They rode the elevator to the top floor in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. When the doors opened, Malik's courage wavered for just a moment. This was Victoria's world, marble floors, abstract art worth more than his annual salary, the kind of quiet that money could buy. But then Emma slipped her hand into his, and he remembered what they were fighting for. Malik knocked on Victoria's door, his heart hammering against his ribs. Sometimes the hardest thing is admitting when we've let fear make our choices for us. Have you ever had to swallow your pride and fight for something, or someone, that mattered? I'd love to hear about those moments when courage finally won out in the comments. Victoria almost didn't answer the knock at her door. She'd been ignoring deliveries for days, and her doorman knew better than to let reporters up to the penthouse level. But something about the gentle, tentative quality of the knock made her pause. She looked through the peephole and felt her heart stop. Malik stood in the hallway, Emma beside him holding what looked like a handmade card. Both of them looked nervous, hopeful, and utterly beautiful in the harsh fluorescent lighting of her building's top floor. Victoria's hand trembled as she reached for the deadbolt. She'd imagined this moment 100 times in the past 4 days. What she'd say, how she'd react, whether she'd have the strength to protect her heart if they only came to say goodbye properly. The door opened, and for a moment, no one spoke. They simply looked at each other across the threshold, Victoria in wrinkled silk pajamas and bare feet, her hair unbrushed, her eyes red from too little sleep and too much crying. Malik in his work clothes, having come straight from his shift. Emma in her school dress with grass stains on the knees. "Hi," Malik said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "Hi," Victoria whispered back. Emma, having no patience for adult awkwardness, pushed past both of them and wrapped her arms around Victoria's waist. "I missed you," she said simply, her face pressed against Victoria's stomach. "Daddy's been sad, and I've been sad, and I think you've been sad too." Victoria's composure cracked completely. She knelt to Emma's level, pulling the little girl into a proper hug, breathing in her familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood sweetness. "I missed you too, sweetheart. So much. I made you something." Emma pulled back, producing a construction paper card covered in glitter and careful crayon writing. "For your birthday." "Well, it's not your birthday," but Daddy says sometimes people need presents even when it's not their birthday. Victoria opened the card with trembling hands. Inside, Emma had drawn 3 stick figures holding hands, one tall with long dark hair, Victoria, one shorter with Emma's distinctive curls, and one in the middle with broad shoulders and a carefully drawn smile, Malik. Above them, in Emma's best handwriting, it read, "My family." "Emma wanted to make sure you knew," Malik said quietly, "that just because we got scared doesn't mean we stopped loving you." Victoria looked up at him, tears streaming freely now. "I thought, when you said I was a mistake. I've never been more wrong about anything in my life." Malik stepped into her apartment, closing the door behind him. "Emma reminded me that I taught her never to let bullies win. And then I did exactly that. The media tension will be what it is. But Emma's right, some things are more important than what strangers think." Malik moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "You're more important than my pride. What we have together is more important than my fear." Victoria stood slowly, still holding Emma's card. "I made a donation," she said suddenly, "to Emma's school. For the arts program. I couldn't stop myself. I wanted to do something for her even if I couldn't be with her." "I know. We saw it on the news." Malik's smile was soft, understanding. "Emma said that proved you still loved us, even when we were being stupid." "Daddy used a bad word," Emma reported cheerfully. "But I think it was okay because we were being stupid." Victoria laughed despite her tears. "Yes, we were being very stupid. So we can be not stupid now?" Emma asked with 6-year-old logic. "I'd like that very much," Victoria said, looking at Malik. "If your daddy wants to try again." "Victoria," Malik said, and she heard everything in her name: apology, hope, love, fear, determination. "I know this won't be easy. I know people will talk and judge and make our lives complicated. But Emma's taught me that love isn't supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be worth it." "And you think we're worth it?" "I think you're the best thing that's happened to us since Emma learned to tie her shoes," Malik said, earning a giggle from his daughter. "I think I was an idiot to let fear make decisions for us. And I think—" He stepped closer, close enough that Victoria could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Victoria-chan. Not your money, not your success, not what you can do for us, just you. The woman who sits on second-hand couches drinking coffee from princess mugs and makes my daughter laugh and reminds me what happiness feels like." Victoria felt her heart expand until it seemed too large for her chest. "I'm already in love with you," she said simply. "Both of you. I've been in love with you since Emma asked me if I wanted kids and I realized the answer was yes. These kids, this family, this life we could build together. Even if it means photographers at school plays and reporters asking Emma questions. Even if it means all of that. We'll figure it out together." "Together," Malik repeated, as if testing the word. "Together," Victoria confirmed. Emma, who'd been watching this exchange with the intensity of a tennis match, suddenly clapped her hands. "Does this mean Victoria can come to my birthday party tomorrow?" Victoria and Malik looked at each other and started laughing, the kind of laughter that comes from relief and joy and the recognition that they'd almost lost something precious over nothing. "If she wants to," Malik said. "Though I should warn you, it's going to be chaos." 6-year-olds hopped up on sugar in a community center with dollar store decorations. "It sounds perfect," Victoria said, meaning it completely. "Really? Because I can't exactly upgrade to somewhere fancier at this point." "Malik." Victoria stepped closer, taking his hands in hers. "I don't want fancier. I want real. I want birthday parties with construction paper crowns and sheet cake and kids running around screaming with happiness. I want Emma's artwork on my refrigerator and movie nights on your couch and the chance to be part of something that matters more than quarterly earnings." "What about your company? Your board meetings? Your empire?" Victoria considered this seriously. "I'll still run my company. I'm still going to be ridiculously wealthy and probably always a little too focused on work. But now I'll have a reason to come home. Now I'll have people who see Victoria, not just the CEO. And if it gets hard, if the attention becomes too much, then we'll deal with it. Together. As a family." Emma, apparently deciding the grown-ups had talked long enough, tugged on Victoria's pajama top. Victoria? Can I ask you something important? Of course, sweetheart. Will you help me plan my party? I already have most of it figured out, but I need someone to help me make sure the decorations are perfect. Victoria looked at this bright, beautiful child who'd somehow decided she belonged in their family, then at Malik, whose eyes held all the love and hope and possibility she'd ever dreamed of finding. I'd be honored to help plan your party, she said solemnly. Though I should warn you, I've never planned a 6-year-old's birthday party before. That's okay. I'm very good at giving directions. I bet you are. 24 hours later, Victoria found herself in a community center that smelled like industrial cleaning supplies and childhood chaos. Wearing jeans and a t-shirt she'd bought that morning, her hair in a ponytail, glitter somehow already embedded under her fingernails despite the party not having officially started yet. Victoria! Victoria! Emma called from across the room where she was directing the placement of balloons with the authority of a wedding planner. The purple balloon needs to be higher. It's not even with the pink one. Yes, ma'am, Victoria called back, adjusting the balloon for the third time. Malik appeared beside her, grinning. Having second thoughts about joining our circus? Not a single one, Victoria said, surprised by how true it was. Though I think Emma might have a future in event planning. She definitely gets the bossiness from her mother. Parents began arriving with their children, and Victoria watched with fascination as Malik transformed into full dad mode, mediating disputes over toy sharing, cleaning up spilled juice, somehow managing to keep track of 8 6-year-olds simultaneously. A few of the parents recognized her, but instead of the judgment she'd expected, she found mostly curiosity and acceptance. When Emma proudly introduced her as Victoria, my daddy's girlfriend, the responses ranged from warm welcomes to casual acknowledgement, as if billionaires dated single fathers every day. You seem surprised, said Maria Santos, whose daughter Sophia was Emma's best friend. What did you expect? Honestly? More drama. More questions about my motivations. Maria laughed. Honey, we're all just trying to survive parenthood. If Malik's happy and Emma's happy, that's all that matters to us. Besides, she added with a grin, anyone willing to voluntarily attend a 6-year-old's birthday party clearly has their priorities straight. The party unfolded with the beautiful chaos Emma had promised. Musical chairs with rules that changed mid-game, a piñata that required 3 adults to hang properly, and enough sugar to power a small city. Victoria found herself in charge of cake-cutting duties, a responsibility Emma took very seriously. Make sure everyone gets equal frosting, Emma instructed. And the birthday girl gets the biggest piece. That's the rule. Got it. Equal frosting, biggest piece for the birthday girl. And save a piece for later. Daddy likes cake for breakfast on special days. Victoria filed this information away with everything else she was learning about life in the Hassan household. That Malik sang off-key in the shower, that Emma's favorite breakfast was strawberry Pop-Tarts cut into triangles, that they had movie nights every Friday and let Emma pick the film even when it meant watching Frozen for the 15th time. As the party wound down and parents collected sugar-crashed children, Victoria found herself helping clean up crepe paper and balloon pieces while Emma showed off her presents in the corner. Thank you, Malik said, appearing beside her with a trash bag. For what? Helping clean up. For being here. For making her day perfect. For. He gestured around the community center, at the remnants of childhood joy scattered across linoleum floors. For choosing this. Choosing us. Victoria looked around the modest room where she'd spent the most genuinely happy afternoon of her adult life, then at Emma who was carefully organizing her birthday haul, then at Malik who was looking at her like she'd hung the stars. I didn't choose this, she said softly. This chose me. You and Emma walked into my life and reminded me what I'd been missing. All I did was stop being too scared to admit I wanted it. And now I want to go home with you and Emma, help her get cleaned up, and eat leftover birthday cake while she tells us about every single present in exhaustive detail. That's your idea of a perfect evening? Victoria smiled, feeling lighter and more certain than she had in years. That's my idea of perfect everything. 6 months later, Victoria's penthouse had been transformed. Children's artwork covered the refrigerator doors of her gourmet kitchen. A section of her marble coffee table was permanently claimed by Emma's homework and art projects. Her vast library now included picture books and early readers sandwiched between business journals and legal texts. The media attention had settled into something manageable, the occasional paparazzi photo, some society page speculation about when they might marry, but nothing like the initial feeding frenzy. Victoria had learned to navigate it, and more importantly, so had Emma, who developed an impressive ability to ignore cameras entirely. Victoria. Emma called from the living room where she was working on a school project about families. Yes, sweetheart. How do you spell chosen? Victoria looked up from her laptop, where she'd been reviewing quarterly reports. CHOSEN. What are you writing about? My family. I have to write about what makes families special. And what did you decide makes families special? Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, marker stains on her fingers and a thoughtful expression on her face. I decided that families aren't just people who are born together. Sometimes they're people who choose each other and decide to love each other forever, even when it's hard. Victoria felt her throat tighten with emotion. That's very wise. I learned it from you and Daddy. You chose us and we chose you, and now we're a real family even though we didn't start as one. The best kind of family, Victoria agreed. Victoria. Yeah. I'm glad Daddy went on that bad date. Me too, baby girl. Me too. That evening, as they sat around Victoria's dining room table eating takeout pizza, Emma's choice, and planning their weekend, a trip to the zoo, followed by a movie marathon, Victoria marveled at how completely her life had changed. She still ran her company, still made billion-dollar deals, still commanded respect in boardrooms across the globe. But now she also knew the satisfaction of helping with homework, the joy of bedtime stories, the peace of falling asleep next to someone who loved her not for what she could provide, but for who she was when everything else was stripped away. Penny for your thoughts, Malik said, noting her contemplative mood. Just thinking about how different everything is now. Good different or scary different. Victoria looked around her apartment, at Emma's sneakers by the door, at Malik's reading glasses on the side table, at the family photo they'd taken last weekend displayed prominently on her mantel, and smiled. Perfect different, she said. Absolutely perfect. What do you think makes a family? Is it just blood relations, or can love create bonds that are just as strong, or even stronger? I believe the families we choose can be just as powerful as the ones we're born into. Share your thoughts about chosen family in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. Later that night, after Emma had been tucked into her new bedroom, the former guest room, now decorated with princess wallpaper and hand-built bookshelves, Victoria and Malik stood on the penthouse balcony looking out over the city. Any regrets? Malik asked, his arm around her waist. Victoria leaned against him, breathing in the scent of his cologne mixed with Emma's strawberry shampoo that somehow always seemed to cling to his shirts. Only one, she said. What's that? I regret that it took us so long to figure out that love isn't about having the same bank balance or the same background. It's about choosing to build something beautiful together, even when the world tells you it won't work. Think it's working? Victoria thought about Emma's laughter echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long, about Malik's presence turning her empty penthouse into a home, about the way her heart had learned to make space for love she'd never thought she deserved. I think, she said, turning in his arms to face him, we're just getting started. Malik kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise, while the city sparkled below them and their daughter slept peacefully in the next room. It had started with $50, a declined credit card, and two people who thought they had nothing in common. It had become everything.
Thank you so much for watching till the very end. I truly appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And be sure to check out my next video. It's one you definitely won't want to miss. See you there.